Hello everybody and welcome to this quick tutorial on how to accomplish um, material manipulation at runtime with scripting and NextGenSprites. So let's first look at the sprite, and here in the material inspector we see that we have a lot of different kind of properties. We have textures, we have colors, we have float values, and last but not least we have features. So in this example, we will just use a simple UI button to make some manipulation at runtime. So let's make a new script and let's call this one UI material controller. All right, great. So let's begin first by making something simple. Let's say we like to change the float. So first we need a reference to the game object, i.e. sprite we trying to target. So let's say public game object target sprite. And then we also need a public field to a float that is our target value. And what else do we need? Well, we need a public string that represents the shader property. So let's call this shader property. And what else do we need? We need a private field, a private field to the material, which we call underscore mat. And first thing we do at start is to get a reference to the material. So we say target sprite, get component, and the material is under the sprite renderer. And now we have three options. We can either get the material, the shared material, and last but not least, material property block. So all these three have down and upsides. First, if we use material, then what we are doing is that we are creating a new instance of said material, and this has the problem that it breaks static and dynamic batching, which means that we can't save a draw call. So we will make a new draw call. And if we use shared material, then we do not break static and dynamic batching, and this way we save draw calls. But this also means that if we make a change on the shared material, then it will also means that all other sprites that are using said material will also be changed. And there's also the, as I already mentioned, the material property block, but that's a little bit more advanced, and for this one I will make a separate video. Anyway, for this example we'll just make a new instance of the material. And now let's make a public function that will be invoked by the UI button. So we call this, let's say, switch change material value. So what will we do? We say mat, and to change the float value we say set float. And now it takes two input parameters. First is the string, which is basically the shader property name, and then second the float value. So let's take a look at the material, at the sprite. As we can see, we have curvature turned on. Let's say we like to change the depth. So what is the property name for the depth? Well, we can actually look it up at the wiki. So let's look here, float properties, and curvature depth is this underscore curvature depth So let's just copy this. And oh yes, actually we do this later. First we just type in the this variable string, so shader property, and then target value. Let's save this, go back to Unity. And now if we attach the script here, we can now put in the property name here, and let's keep the target value at 0. Great, so let's play, and now let's press the button, and nothing happened. So why is that so? Let's take a look. Curvature depth, it's shader property, it's a string, target value, okay. Alright, we have actually need to assign the action here, so it's called change material value. And actually let's change the name of the button, because just button means nothing. Let's say change material. I think that makes more sense. So let's press play. And if we press now the button, as you can see now, our sprite is completely flat. And if we change this, let's say to 1, then it's now to 1. And if we take a look at the inspector, it's true, it's set to 1. Now let's take a quick look at this here. As you can see, we can go from -1 to 1 and vice versa. And there's a little trick. If we, by scripting, you can actually overshoot these values. So if we go back to our button here, we can say, for example, we like to use a target value of 10. Now if we press the button, as you can see, the curvature is now at a value of 10. So this is a little trick you can do by scripting. And now let's go back to our script. You know, if we look at the shader property, it's kind of stupid that we always have to look here at the wiki and what's the name, and I mean, it's so much you can't remember this. So let's go here and let's say using statement to the NextGenSprites namespace. And now we can do something different. Let me comment this one out. The NextGenSprites namespace offers an enumeration where we can select the property value, and from there it can return a string for us. So an example for curvature depth, we just say shader, oops, let me spell it correctly, shader, and we have shader color, feature, float, and texture. So for this, it would be float, and then we say dot, and then curvature depth, and then again dot, and then we say get string, and voila. Let's press save, and let's go back, and let's play. It's still set to 0, so if I press change material, as you can see, it's turned now totally flat. And we can make this even more interesting. We can say, for example, that instead of using a public string, we can say shader float. So basically, we can use the enumeration itself, and then we can just remove this, and then we say shader property, which is this here, dot get string. Great. And now, as you can see, we get a nice drop down. Awesome, that's great. So we can say curvature gloss, and let's say, for example, it will be 0. Let's play. And now we have no gloss anymore. And we can actually, I think, go minus. I never tried this one. Let's see. Yeah, still no gloss. Great. And we can also say 4. We have a lot of gloss. Actually, it looks kind of like rim lighting. Anyway, so that's how we do floats. Let's try colors. So public color, and we say target color. And now, obviously, it would say set color and target color as our target value for the set color method. So let's save, let's go back. And now we can use a color, and as you can see, we can now select oh, actually we need to change the type of the enumeration. As you see, it's still set to shader float. Useless if we like to change the color. So let's say shader color. Alright, now we should get our correct enumeration. Right, so let's keep it at curvature. So as you can see, it's kind of yellowish. We can check it here on the material. It's correct, it's yellowish. And on the button on the script, it's blue. So let's try this out. Let me press the button, and it's now blue. Well, let's try red. And yep, it works. Nice. Can also be used for the sprite tinting as well. And as you can see, you can also use it for emission and the dissolve glow. It also works pretty much the same for texture. Would we say just texture and then shader texture, and then again set texture and so on. So yeah, I think I don't really need to explain you this one now. So let's skip this one, and let's now jump to the last one, and it's toggling shader features. So this one is different. For this one, we need two methods. So let's go step by step. So instead of using a public texture, obviously it would be a bool, and then we say target, and I will just call this toggle, and instead of shader texture, it would be shader feature. Let's just delete this one here. And so for this one, we have two methods. It either says mat, then enable keyword, or disable keyword. So let's say if toggle is true, then we like to enable the feature. So we say mat set enable keyword, and then shader property get string, and else if the toggle is set to false, then we say material disable keyword, so shader property get string. Right, let's jump back to Unity. And as you can see, if the checkbox is on, then it will be turned on. And it's already set to reflection. So let's try this out. And if you press the button, then you can see our reflection is turned on. And if I say put the checkbox to false, press again the button, then again it's disabled. So this is just an example with the UI. Obviously in-game you would make some interesting stuff. For example, let's say the player dies, then you would enable in this moment the dissolve, and then with the animation you would then make it dissolve. Or for example, if you could use sprite tint set to blue, or actually you would set to curvature highlight to blue if you, for example, your character got some poison or something like that. Or for example, the scene lights turn dark, so it's night, then you would enable emission, and then your character would be glowing and that kind of stuff, or enemies, or environment, or everything. So yeah, the only limit is your imagination, your fantasy. And again, I like to say that For troubleshooting, you can always go to the wiki, and in the editor, there are everywhere helper buttons that directly let you jump to the place where you get some help and information. So let's say scripting, and then you don't know what does get min and max do. Actually, I actually forgot to mention min and max. So let's try this one out. And this will be the last thing. So as you all learned before, we can make this trick that, let's say, let me quickly undo everything here. All right, so we are back again at changing float values. And as you remember, I explained you before that we can overshoot values. So I can say, for example, curvature depth will be 10. And if we play, then it's at 10. But what if you're actually making something at runtime and you don't know beforehand what the recommended min and max values are? Because they're obviously a purpose, that's a reason why you only can go to -1 and 1, because it's just the recommended way where it looks good or makes sense. And if you don't know beforehand what the values are, which are also mentioned here under, oops, not this one, the float properties here, min and max values, we can actually also check this by scripting. So I could say target value equals math, then clamp, then target value. Now comes the interesting part. We again reference the enumeration, so shader property, then we can say get min. This will get us the float value, that is the recommended minimum value. And for this one, the last one is we give the max value. So we can say shader property get max, and it already says returns the recommended max value for the selected shader property. Obviously, you are free to overshoot these values. So get max, and jump back to Unity. And now let's press play. And if we say again the button 10, and I press the button, as you can see, it's still at 1. Oops, actually that was surface glossiness. Curvature depth, let's set this just to 0. Alright, and now let's say 10. And as you know, the max value is 1. So if I press, it will be clamped at 1. As you can check here, it really is 1. So yeah, that's it. As you can see, it's pretty easy, and I hope you could understand everything. And again, if you need help, just look at the wiki or look at the Unity forum from NextGenSprites, or just write me an email. So thank you for watching, and see you soon. Bye bye.